Welcome to Personal Injury Marketing Minute.
Welcome to the Personal Injury Marketing Minute, where we quickly cover the hot topics in the legal marketing world. I'm your host, Lindsey Busfield, the Vice President and Partner over at Optimize My Firm. Today, I'm joined by Gary Falkowitz, co-founder of Capture Now and one of the legal industry's most recognized intake and conversion specialists. Gary has spent decades helping law firms improve intake performance, increase conversions, and make sure valuable cases don't slip through the cracks. Today, we're talking about AI intake. We'll go over where personal injury firms should realistically begin and why Triage might be the most practical place to start. Thank you so much for joining me today, Gary.
Thank you for having me, Lindsay. How are you?
I am doing great. How are you doing today?
I am doing really well. Glad to be on this podcast. I hear nothing but wonderful things, and excited to talk intake today.
I am too, because this is something that all personal injury attorneys are aware of and are probably overly inundated with right now with AI this and how can it optimize operations and marketing. And there's just a lot of information, confusion, probably some hesitation out there, especially when it comes to AI for intake, because intake is clearly one of the most important operational pieces when it comes to getting new clients signed up. And it can be unnerving to hand something like that over to technology. So I want to focus this episode on where to start with it because it is coming and it's here and it's going to be part of legal operations moving forward, but it doesn't have to be scary. So Gary, let's dive into this with talking about the need and some of the gaps that traditional intake has had over the years. So, what are some of the problems that led to AI integration and intake in the first place?
Yeah. So, Lindsay, I've consulted with hundreds of law firms on intake. I happen to be an attorney. When I started my career and I jumped into the personal injury side of things, I realized that this is a business, owning a law firm and running a practice. And I also realized that many law firm owners and law firms were sort of improvising, yet they were still successful if you're going to define success as profitable, but they weren't maximizing profit. They weren't maximizing revenue. And when you put together the service that you're offering, the level of competition that's out there, the model of how long it takes, especially in the personal injury world, to generate revenue, and everything has to go in between, you realize that it's sales. The front end side of all this is really sales, and you're competing against other businesses that want the same clients. We work in a very interesting industry. We're not allowed to solicit for clients. We can't knock on your window and go, "Hey, I heard you were in an accident last week. I happen to be an accident attorney. Can I help you?" Not allowed, unethical. So shouldn't be doing that. And the only way we can help people is if they reach out to us. Which means, and this is why you see so many commercials, we've got to advertise. We've got to be all over TV and radio and digital and ... Once you get the marketing down, once you have gained the courage and gained the resources to invest into marketing, the next step is really the intake and the sales. You asked why is it so tough for lawyers, or where are they sort of missing the beat here? Well, I don't think that the resources that we've traditionally had no longer are sufficient to convert leads into clients. People are not fast enough. We're not decisive enough. We don't train them well enough to know how to answer questions or get over challenges. We give them too many things to take care of that they end up putting things in the back burner, and then they don't get to them fast enough. And when you put all of these, and there are a dozen other reasons, but when you put all these reasons together, you realize that if you are just relying on people to handle your intake and your sales, you're going to leave a lot of money on the table and you're going to lose. And quite frankly, I don't know if you're going to be able to survive in the long run. Forget about just, leaving some money on the table. So that's why we decided we have to start thinking about more efficient, more reliable, more transparent, faster ways of solving this problem at intake.
And I think efficiency really is the bottom line of what we're talking about here. Is AI, if you are thinking about it as an efficiency tool as opposed to a people replacement tool, is really where the value is. And it goes back to what you said about maximizing profit. And you can't maximize profit when you have giant glaring inefficiencies that come with, I mean, it's human nature. People just cannot keep up with the AI tools that are out there. Because when it comes to intake in particular, when somebody calls a law firm, they are in crisis mode and they need help now. And if you, for some reason, miss the call or you don't have the right information right off the bat, then there is a giant inefficiency there, and somebody will that prospective client will find someone else who can help them now.
So I'll add to that, Lindsay, because I know that in our industry, and I do it too, we like to say that everybody who calls up might be in crisis mode and it's an emergency. Um, I would, it's most of the time, I think we have to change our, because when you say it's crisis mode, well, then your reaction must be, well, if it's crisis mode, how could the solution be AI? I need a human being to answer that call because it's crisis and AI can't handle crisis. People need to handle crisis. But what if, and this is the truth, what if most people that are calling aren't necessarily in crisis mode, but they are in decision mode? They have taken the time sometimes. It's not an hour after the accident. Sometimes it is, but it's not an hour after it. It's a week or a month after the accident. And they've had time to figure out what are their options. Do I need a lawyer? Don't I need a lawyer? Is my injury getting worse or is it getting better? Am I getting the runaround from the insurance company or are they treating me fairly? And at some point they go, okay, I don't like what's going on here. I'm uncomfortable. I don't know what to do. And I have to make a decision about moving the responsibility of this potential case that a lawyer might handle from my shoulders over to a law firm's shoulders. Now, when you're in that decision-making mode, speed and efficiency, like you say, play a major, major role because when you made that phone call, you've now already decided I'm likely going to hire a lawyer. I just need someone to bring me over the line. I need someone to reassure me, to give me confidence, to give me compassion, and to tell me that, why it makes sense for me to move forward with a lawyer. But if someone doesn't do that, they're going to look for it elsewhere. And wherever, this is the big word that I like to use a lot, friction. Wherever there's friction, there's pushing you away. And that's what the problem was with no AI. There's too much friction with no AI. The long ring time, the long hold time, the long conversations that seem to be going on forever with no decision, right? Those are all friction moments. And I think, as you talked about, and as I just stated, when people are calling up, it may or may not be crisis mode, but it is absolutely decision-making time. And if you're going to put any friction that delays or makes it hard for them to make a decision, you're hurting yourself. You're hurting the firm. You're hurting your brand. And that's why AI is so valuable and so efficient.
Right, because they are there to make a decision. And as you said, they're uncomfortable. And in this day and age, you have to be pretty uncomfortable to pick up the phone and make a call.
Yeah.
So if somebody is uncomfortable enough to actually pick up the phone and use it as a telephone, then yeah, they're ready to make a decision. They're ready to take action. And you need to have something on the other end of the line that reassures them, yes, not only you're making a decision, but you're taking the right action for your case and provide that reassurance,
That's right.
as you said. So I think that's brilliant. And when somebody is, in that mode, that is one phone call that we see coming in for lawyers. But in a conversation that you and I had earlier, that's not the only phone call that law firms are getting. And if we are wasting time answering other phone calls and directing those phone calls to other places, that's another inefficiency. So, Gary, can you walk us down that path as well?
Yeah, I mean, one of the major issues that anybody will have is when they call their law firms or business that they have a relationship with, and the person they speak with can't help. right? Oh, let me put you on hold, or I could send you to their voicemail, or someone will give you a call back. There was zero value you just provided to me. And by the way, I now might be in crisis mode because maybe I have my deposition tomorrow. Maybe the trial's set for next week. Maybe I'm going to the doctor and I don't know what to say, or I have a call at the insurance company. I don't know what to say. I need someone to advise me, right? I need my lawyer, my legal team. And that's a problem. Maybe I don't know what's going on with my case, and I'm thinking about going to another law firm. And now that you're telling me you can't help me, that's exactly what I need to move my case to another law firm. And right now, receptionists, and I love them, receptionists in general, they're so kind, they're so respectful. They really do a great job being the cover of the book or cover of the firm quite often. But they may not, the current setting of a law firm may not need the traditional sense of a receptionist. Because the receptionist is only as good as who's available quite often. So with AI, what we could do is, especially with Capture Now, is we can have integration with your CRM and answer questions about your case. If you're an existing client, if you're a vendor, if we need to schedule a call with an attorney, whatever it is, we can tell you the status update. That's the type of technology that we need in our offices and our everyday business life, because what we're doing, again, is we're removing the friction. We're removing a callback. We're removing the disappointment that no one's available and no one can help. And I think it's, if you want to win in business, you have to remove all delays, all friction points, all people that are slowing it down. And whether you're a tremendous AI advocate or you're an extremely hesitant AI user, you're going to have to buy into the fact that AI is moving things a lot faster and they're making things a lot more efficient.
Well, and I think it's an interesting point that you raise because all of the information that a receptionist would have, or even a paralegal or anybody else who is there to answer the phone, they aren't pulling that knowledge from their head. Not everybody has all of the details memorized about a case. Where are they going to? They're going to their CRM. They are looking up the details of a case, and that person is just there to interpret the information. And so if you can cut out the middleman and have that information immediately available to the clients that you're serving, how much better service can you provide?
And I think, you bring something up, Lindsay, and I haven't talked about it in this way yet, probably. But when you think about the original reason for the receptionist, it was really to ensure that when someone called your business, we had someone who was available to answer the call, period. It wasn't, we need someone who can answer the call and solve your problem. That wasn't the original goal. It was, we don't want it to go to voicemail. We don't want it to just keep ringing. We don't want them to think that we're not working. So someone who answers the call is better than no one answering the call. And that's no longer the standard we can play with in our law firms or in business.
Right.
You can't just having someone available isn't even it's no standard. That gets you nowhere. Now you got to make sure that whoever answers the call is actually able to solve a problem or an issue. And that's what Capture Now does for existing clients. That's what it does for new leads, right? There's a sense, I talk about this a lot. The longer number of rings, or the more rings you hear when you call a business, the more you assume that either they're too busy for you or they don't have the resources to help you. Both are negative, right? So the only way to combat that, the only way to beat that challenge, to overcome that challenge, is to remove the rings. Well, how do you remove the rings other than completely overstaffing and having 500 people available to pick up a call, which is never going to happen, right? You have to put some type of technology in place, a conversational AI like Capture Now, that will pick up on the first ring every single time, regardless of time and regardless of volume, right? That's one friction point that's removed. And we've got to think about, as an owner of a business, I'm always thinking, what friction points still exist that are possibly removable? And I think all of us have to think about that. We can't just say, oh, we had a great month last month, let's not change a thing. No, we had a great month last month. How do we make it better next month? That's got to be the goal.
And you can see it in the data. And when you are evaluating the data, when you have traditional receptionist, traditional intake, versus when you are able to meet every prospective client's need immediately, whether it's saying yes or no, or even just answering phone calls and directing them to the right place and not using up the human time that you already are paying for intake. Those are all efficiencies which are going to translate into
I
revenue.
mean, something you're sort of touching upon is triaging, right? Imagine having Capture Now in place, or an AI product like that, where the AI the AI respondent, or conversational bot, is determining the reason for the call, and then making another determination as to whether it needs to be escalated to a human being, whether they can resolve it on their own, whether they could potentially schedule a call with the appropriate person on a future day. But think about how much time you just saved with Capture Now, especially if now you said to your intake team, okay, we're only going to have 3 people. They're all going to be closers, and you're only going to handle the calls that Capture Now determines are qualified enough to speak with you. And we understand, because this is what happens in most law firms, we understand that 80% of the inbound leads have no value, and we want to remove those conversations and those minutes on the phone from your day, because we don't want you wasting your time with 80% of people we can't help. And rather, we're going to make it where you're now only spending 98% of the time with people who we could potentially help. That's the goal, right? Like, let's start. I mean, we keep touching upon these words, and there's no reason not to, right? The efficiency, the lack of friction, the triage. That is where this works. That is where, and if you're a law firm that's not currently using AI with, and I'll talk about outbound in a moment, but with answering inbound calls at any point in the day, you should go listen to your recorded calls. You should go listen. I mean, things like ring time for a minute and a half, recordings of the owner of the firm on what do they call that, on loop, over and over and over again, and doesn't get forwarded to anywhere. People saying, hold on, I can't help you, or the receptionist saying, all of our intake specialists are busy right now, someone will call you back. I mean, this is
Yeah.
happening every single day. How can we win in business? We haven't even gotten to the point of being your lawyer and trying to get you money for your injury. We're still in the let me try to get you on the phone with someone who might be able to hear what happened stage, which is
Right.
crazy.
Well, and if those people who are calling are witnessing your inefficiencies in your intake process, it's going to make them assume that you can't handle any other aspect of your business efficiently as well. And ultimately, that's going to be a disservice for them down the road. So if that is your initial sales piece, yeah, you're going to be losing a lot.
Well, because you're right, because the business itself is being judged by the first response, right? And not just the speed, of course, the speed, not just the determination, of course, that too, but everything in between, how the conversation went, whether someone's paying attention, right? I don't mean to, I'm not looking to crap on intake specialists. I love intake specialists. I've been working with them my whole career. I try to make them better at their job. I'm their number one advocate. However, if you don't have a good one, think about how much that hurts your firm. If you have someone that is indecisive, that is not confident, that has no compassion, that isn't reassuring, that isn't fast, that has no authority to make decisions, that is hurting your reputation more than you could possibly imagine, because people share that. People like to go to dinner and go, you wouldn't believe the experience I just had with this law firm I just called. Can you imagine she asked me this question, ... or told me this, ... That's bad. That's a bad reputation right there. We got to fix that.
Yeah. And one of the other advantages that I think is important to note is that intake specialists are human. And when, and as a human, everybody has a bad day. And you can't help but bring that into work with you. Yeah, I have a bad night's sleep and I am worthless the next day. And it happens to everybody. But if you can have that first line of introduction, never have a bad day, how great would it be to just be able to bring all that information every day to the closer that who can close in their sleep?
Yeah, I mean, so you bring up a couple of points there. So number one, what you just said, and I'll say it differently, is imagine if you can guarantee an A response every single time, right? Imagine that. Who would not sign off on that? Now let's go one step further. So your intake specialists are human beings. They have feelings. Traditionally, there's 80% of the people they're speaking with, they can't help, and they could be long conversations, and they could be with people who are getting frustrated with them because we can't help. And now they're really emotionally exhausted, right? And sure, hopefully they get some on the 20% of the calls that they can help. Hopefully they're on their A game and they're feeling good about it. Now imagine putting them in a position where all day long, maybe not as much in terms of frequency, but every call they get on is with a real potential client, a real qualified claimant. Do you know how much better that job is for the intake specialist to feel so valuable that they're just speaking with people who they could possibly help? That's huge. That's the type of job that intake specialists want. They don't want to be in a call. They don't want to come to work and at the end of the day, someone says, "So, how many calls did you take today?" And you go, "Well, I took about 74 calls." Okay, that's a big number. How many did you qualify? 2. Oh man, so 72 people you spoke with, they were disqualified. That seems like the worst day. I just wasted my day, right? Now go the other way around, right? You're using Capture Now. There's a triage. All qualified leads get pushed to you at the end of the day. Hey, how many calls did you take today? About 18. Pretty good. Not a lot of calls. How many did you qualify? 16. That's awesome, right? That's what we're talking about here. And I think that's the future. It's the present for many firms. For the firms that are still hesitant about it, what I'll say is this, a year and a half ago, AI was for the bold. It was really for those folks who said, I want to try something new. I'm aggressive. I don't mind the risks associated with it. And most of those folks are really ahead of the game. But right now, AI is not for the bold. AI is required. It's really required for no matter what business you're in. If you're not leaning on it, you're leaving a lot of money on the table.
Well, and that's true. And I remember a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when it was just rolling out and hearing some horror stories because people were not in a mindset where they wanted to talk to AI. And it was obvious that they were talking to AI and it wasn't necessarily helpful. And it was rough. I mean, it was really rough. But that's gonna come with being the initial product tester of these and integrating it there. But if you think about how far AI has come in just the ability to generate images. So you think about 2 years ago, we were all making fun of, the models that had 12 fingers. And now you really can't tell a whole lot of difference. And just the advancement in imaging alone, now translate that over to conversational AI or email. It's becoming a very blurred line of what is.
Yes, I think like anything new, we have to get used to it before it becomes the standard, right? You think about like DoorDash or some of these other delivery options. I was very hesitant about, as I'm sure my wife was, about using these companies. Who's going to be driving them and where are they getting the the material from and how long is it going to take and all this other stuff. Valid concerns, by the way. But once you jump in and you start using it, you go, how did I do this without this before? What was how is it possible? Right? That's where we're past the new stage of talking to a conversational AI bot. I could tell because I hear the calls. I listen to a lot of calls and I could tell that the overwhelming majority of people are valuing the ability to share their story over whether I'm speaking with a human being, right? For them, it's sort of I don't want to call it selfish, although it is. They have a goal where they have this challenge, they have this problem, they have this issue. And because speed is part of the solution, they're now willing to disregard the fact that it's not a human being if they're going to get the speed that they wanted. And they just want to share their story. And if they could share without someone asking for you to repeat yourself, without someone spending 4.5 minutes on your contact information before they get to the reason for your call, those are big pluses, huge pluses. I think we, as business owners, as law firm owners, as people who represent claimants, we have to stop pretending that, I love when I hear someone I don't love it, but it's sort of amusing. When I hear a law firm owner, an old school law firm owner go, no, no, no. The people who call my law firm, they want to speak to human beings. I'm going to make sure they speak to human beings. Wow, what a mistake you're making. That's what you think they want. You think they want because you're a traditionalist, and I value that. I really do. I respect that. But what they really want, and you better have, is speed. And they'll take a conversational AI voice bot if they can they can share the story right now over a human being in 12 minutes every single time. And by the way, we also have options like if someone says, I want to speak to a human being, great. We're going to forward it to a human being. I want to get that intake specialist who is really excited because I can go help somebody right now, as opposed to wasting their day with the majority of people who they can't help.
Well, and I think that is the stepping stone there, especially for those who are a little hesitant that they're going to be missing clients. If you provide the option, then you truly know what people are wanting. If they are comfortable sharing their story with the AI and having that speed of service versus somebody who calls who is a traditionalist. And I know that for me personally, it would depend on the situation. If I am in that urgency, active decision making mode, then yes, I'm going to want that information as quickly as possible. But if my process is a little slower, if I want to make sure that somebody is understanding the nuances of my challenge, then yeah, I might want to talk to like a person that I feel like can better understand each of these. And I think that by providing that choice, you are showing that you actually care about your client and about what they want, regardless of the decision that they make. It says, I am here for you. How do you want to get this done? And I think that would speak volumes about a law firm.
So it's so interesting you say that. First of all, I agree 100%, but I want to add another element to it. So I agree that options are very valuable because not everybody wants the same path. Everybody wants the same thing. What I'm already seeing, and this isn't to take away the options because I think it's really important. We were very, very clear when we created this solution. We were very clear about making sure that law firms still had availability of people for those folks who preferred to speak with people. We aren't now, and we weren't then looking to say, you don't need your people anymore. That's not true. You need your people. It's maybe not as many people, but you need people. But here's what's crazy. And it's not a sales pitch as much as an observation. You and I might think, I really need to speak to a human being because I have a complicated situation. In reality, if we had to look, if we had to compare, if we gave both a human being and an AI the same set of facts, and we compared their responses and solutions, I think we would both be sort of taken aback about as to how much better the AI really is. Now, I'm not saying you and I should stop, talking to people. Of course, we need that human interaction, but it is unbelievably prepared and knowledgeable on such intricacies that we're not ready yet to accept, but it's there.
So, Gary, I've got to tell you a funny story that happened yesterday. I logged into my Gmail account, and it was my personal Gmail account, and I noticed this new feature on there that was an AI inbox. And I was like, oh, that's a little weird, but I clicked on it, and it had already gone through all of my emails, itemized my tasks, gave me a button to click once I have crossed off the task, and like one was signing my child up for her swim meet. And I was like, oh, I did forget to do that. And so it just had this list of reminders by going through my email. And I was like, oh, I do need to add funds to the lunch account and all of this. And I never knew that this was even going to show up in my Gmail account. And now I have the option of looking at my AI inbox versus my traditional inbox, which has clearly failed me because it relies on my human nature to be able to complete all my tasks.
Right.
And I went through my checklist, felt accomplished, and then felt a little disappointed that I didn't have that feature in my regular work email as well.
Right.
So And it doesn't take away my traditional inbox. I still have the option to go back through all of my emails, but just having the option to use AI to increase those efficiencies. And so my kid can actually buy lunch today. She's pretty happy about that. Uh, but having the option in place is a great stepping stone. And I think that people will be leaning towards AI more and
I
more.
mean, yeah, I think it's such a problem solving technique for us because right now, there are times where something didn't work, right? You're talking about your Gmail for a moment, but there are times where something didn't work. And I would be so discouraged that I have to go take an hour out at some point today and go call up Verizon or call up my computer company or call up this company and go, I'm just going to take an hour of my day. I know it. And I'm going to allot the time and I make this call and hopefully they can resolve it. Now, that was 3 years ago. Now, it seems like every single issue I have with like a problem or a company, I'll go to my, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT, and I'll say, here's the situation. This isn't working. How do I fix it? And 9 out of 10 times, it's bringing me to the solution, right? And who knows how long that phone call would have taken, how long I would have been put on hold, right? How many people I would have spoken to until I spoke with the right person. Again, it just, and this is sort of, I don't know if it's circular reasoning or something else, but or maybe it's just supporting coincidentally our thesis. But we're all looking for speed to resolution. Okay, we're all looking for speed to or a fast response. Why are we thinking that as a law firm it's any different? It's not any different. I just to give you a sense, right? So I created something called the Intake Performance Audit, right? And the IPA. And what it does for law firms, it takes all this data into their CM, and then I use all my methodologies, all the things I've learned over the years of consulting with hundreds of law firms, and then I spit out an audit for them once a week, and it tells them, here are all your leaks. Here are all your leaks with all of your leads in the last 30 days. And it's this proactive approach because I don't want them to feel like, oh man, by the time I found this, it was 3 months later. How come we didn't know about this big case? Or we have to go look at this report or this dashboard. And I think one of the reasons that I created that, it's very consistent with why we have Capture Now. We're trying to solve problems faster. And if you're a business owner, you've got to be thinking that way. You don't have to have all the answers, by the way. Like, get that out of your head. That's not what this is about. But you do have to have whether it's AI or whether it's other, partners, if you will, you have to have these solutions and these, here are your problems and here's a resolution at your fingertips all day, every day. You can't be just hoping that, well, since it worked last month, it's going to work this month. But we're past that right now. It's moving so fast that we have to be thinking about how do we get more efficient? How do we think about getting more productive? How do we do more with less?
And I think that it's also important to note that this isn't the first time that workplaces have been revolutionized by technology and have really changed the landscape of how we work. I think about 20 years ago 30 years ago now, when I was a kid, my mom went to work. She was a hospital administrator. She had her secretary, Brenda, and Brenda was there to write letters and send faxes, or I don't even know if they had fax machines at that point yet. But Brenda served an integral role in my mom's day. And now that role has been replaced by email. It's been replaced by PowerPoint. It's been modernized and revolutionized in a way that if somebody were to say, hey, my secretary will send you a letter and you'll get it in the mail in a week, and let's go ahead and do things that way, they would be laughed at. It'd be like, this is so archaic. And so now we have this new technology that is once again revolutionizing the workplace and in a very unique, special way. But there's no going back now. It's a matter of whether or not you are going to modernize and move forward with it, or whether you're going to wait 20 years and wish that you had now.
Well, I could tell from the conversation and from our prior conversation, you are generally conservative, right? You're sort of like, before I jump all the way in, I want to try it, which is why we've talked about a couple of times, both on camera and off camera. Hey, Gary, how does a law firm get involved with a Capture Now or AI, a little bit before they jump in completely? And I think that the answer really is, let's stick with that. Let's start with the lowest hanging fruit, your Knights, Overflow, and weekend, right? Usually, law firms are either they're going to voicemail and your business isn't going to be here in the next 6 months, or they're going to a call center. If they're going to a call center, I beg you to please just listen to 3 calls. I beg you, because listen, I own the call center. It was ultimately acquired, but I know that what went into but the training and the management and the everyday ensuring of people doing what they're supposed to be doing. And it's almost impossible to ensure that everybody is on their A game all the time to make sure they answer the phone with the right law firm name or follow the right script or with the right goal. And for that, why not go with an inexpensive, right, much less expensive solution, Capture Now, rather than a call center, and ensure a level of predictability from both the answering, the conversation, the information retrieval, the integration into your CRM, right there. Check all those boxes. Never again worry about, did we miss a call? Because that's something that many law firms are concerned about. Did we miss a call overnight? Did we miss a call over the weekend? You'll never miss a call. So that's probably one easy, low hanging fruit way to jump in with Capture Now. Another one, like you said, is the triage. Have Capture Now pick up every inbound phone call and just push the call to the right person with or without integration, and just ensure again that you never miss a very important conversation, whether it's a judge, a doctor, an existing client, someone who's looking to go somewhere else, a potential new client. So I think those are your 2 gateway solutions that A, you won't be risking too much, and B, you'll learn a lot about whether it fits with what you're doing at the law firm.
And I think that's a great starting point. And I love that you do have the flexibility to be able to not necessarily jump in with both feet, because this is a big decision. Intake is a hugely important part of your business, and it's risky, but especially with the wrong company that isn't quite as advanced as Capture Now is, but is regardless a risk that you are assuming when you are handing over parts of your intake process. So I love that you have the flexibility to be able to dip a toe in first and see if this is the right decision for your law firm.
So when you say it's risky, not that I'm doing this for a sales purpose, but it's such an easy story to share. We have a Capture Now client who does criminal defense. And they say, Gary, the straw that broke the camel's back for us was that someone called our firm during the weekend, and an outsourced call center representative picked up the call, heard the story, the claimant's or the caller's story, and then responded with, I think you should turn yourself into the police. So for us, meaning that law firm, for us, the risk was I cannot risk a human being who doesn't know my industry, who doesn't know what we're looking for, saying, by the way, no bad intent, but saying something that can ruin lives and hurt our business. And that for them was the major risk. And I think people need to understand that, like you said, is it risky to try something new? Of course, it's natural to think it's risky. I think you'll realize it's not as risky as you thought it was. I would argue, because I know a little bit more given my business and what I've seen, that it's probably riskier to have a stranger that you have not personally trained handle conversations or communication with either potential clients or existing clients.
Well, and to that end, any part of your business that you are handing over to someone else to manage, that you are delegating out, whether to AI or to another human, there's a risk that it won't be handled the way that you would handle it. But as a law firm owner or managing partner, somebody who's still taking cases, you don't have time to make zero risk. You're going to have to assume some risk in order to grow.
I love that point. Man, nice job.
Well, and I have loved talking with you about this and learning more. And if somebody is interested in talking to you or finding out more about Capture Now, how can they get in touch?
Yeah, reach out, Gary at capturenow.com. I think we have a whole team. Our tech is continuously improving. I think you're going to love it. And I wish you all the best of luck as you begin to step into the AI world. My advice to you is don't run away from it, walk into it. Okay. You have to run into it. That's fine. Walk into it because the survival of your business relies upon it. I wish you the best luck. You're going to love it. Lindsey, this is an absolute pleasure. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much for coming on, Gary. That's going to wrap up this episode of the Personal Injury Marketing Minute. If you want to learn more about Gary and Capture Now, we will put all of the information in the transcript notes. And if you're a personal injury firm looking for ways to improve intake, get more business actually calling your intake team, feel free to reach out to me at lindsey@optimizemyfirm.com. Thank you so much, Gary. It has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Lindsey. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.